So, 1996's Bound. There was a widely held belief, which I now understand to be utter bollocks, that Bound, the low-budget 1996 thriller from the Wachowskis, was essentially a test bed for the sibling directorial duo to prove they could work a film set prior to being greenlit for The Matrix. To the best of my knowledge, either one or both of the sisters have since discredited this, and in retrospect, it seems pretty obvious that the business correlation between a $4 million lesbians versus the mafia heist movie and a $70 million sci-fi epic seems pretty slim. Jennifer Tilly plays Violet, a former waitress who is now the girlfriend of mid-tier mafia goon Caesar, Joey Pants, though we soon come to learn she is essentially trapped in a cycle of holding court with a number of Caesar's associates within the mob. Looking for a way out of this life which denies her any number of freedoms, not least among them her sexuality, Violet seduces ex-con Corky, Gina Gershon, who has taken up employment as the mafia's property maintenance expert, and together the pair hatch a scheme to relieve Caesar of the $1 million plus he and his associates have just recovered from an accountant on the skim. It's a simple enough setup, satisfyingly executed, and remains so today even on rewatch number X, and there is still a sense in which this remains my favourite of the Wachowskis' movies. Somewhat sensationalised at the time, and subject to that late 90s, early 2000s scourge of uncut version DVD sleeve proclamations, Bound's fleeting portrayals of intimacy between its two female leads was always overblown, an artefact of its time augmented by Tilly and Gershon's obvious appeal to the male gaze and subsequent accusations of lipstick lesbianism. Swap either female lead for a male character, and neither the setup nor the supposedly explicit content would have given cause for anyone to bat an eyelid. Still, if sensationalism helped bring this movie to the attention of a broader audience, then fine, for it was, and is, at least, a good movie. With a small cast and only two main locations, namely a gangster's apartment and the apartment through the wall, it would be really easy for Bound to come across as stagey, but the notion never really crosses my mind during viewings, as there's enough of interest going on in terms of camera work and sound design amongst other things to distract from a script that could easily be retrofitted to resemble a Mamet play. The performances are pretty solid throughout, though we're dealing with characters and a world so detached from my perspective of day-to-day reality that I'm loath to call judgment on their authenticity. If I were in the business of quantifying mafia cliches, then I'd say I find Joey Pants engaging enough. But this is Tilly and Gershon's show, and I really enjoy their performances here, at least partly because we have not one, but two leads from a part of society which was until very recently cripplingly underrepresented. I don't know that either Tilly or Gershon was afforded much opportunity to demonstrate their talent until this point, and I have a narrow range of depressingly predictable assumptions, which we've already discussed, as to why that probably was. I would have liked to have seen them afforded more high-profile roles in the years following, but again, as we've previously discussed, for either actor, I could count on the fingers of one hand the number of times I have come across their billing in the quarter century since. As a calling card, I think Bound holds up reasonably well, and if it were true that this was essentially a demo reel, then it'd be safe to say Warner's got a bit of a bargain. Either way, an interesting piece of low-budget filmmaking, and one which, owing to its two leads, still feels surprisingly contemporary.
Yeah, I like Bound. I've not seen it in a long time. I'd kind of forgotten most of the details. I mean, I can't deny, certainly back in the 1990s when I saw it first, I mean, a much younger man, that the kind of sensuality and the very attractive ladies in the front were part of the appeal.
Oh, my days, yeah.
But there is more to it than that. I mean, it's not outstanding, but it's quite a simple concept, fairly low budget, and it's like, there is something to your idea of it being stagey, Craig. I mean, and some of it's a bit over the top too, like the police officer's not going to notice standing on a blood-soaked carpet. That sort of thing. It's a bit much. It's a bit of a stretch, but there's enough tension and enough scenes to make it really quite enjoyable. The problem I've always had with the film, though, is that there's a character in it called Corky. And I'm not having that. That's the stupidest name I've heard in a good long time.
You and I share an opinion on that, Drew. That has always bothered me. Somebody who hadn't read The Dandy as a child would have found that name quite so stupid. I don't know, but it is a dumb name. And honestly, every time it takes it out for me. But yeah, it's the only real issue I have with it. I mean, it's not the most remarkable film I've ever seen, but it's solid. It's a solid B movie.
and I'm quite happy with that. The only issue I have is structural, because I don't really think that the film beginning where it does really adds anything. Mm-hmm. It's like you're always waiting, like, oh, why is Gina Gershon lying tied up, and where's this going to? Like, when you guess it, it's like, yeah, well, okay, but did I really need to have that kind of tease at the start? It didn't add anything to it.
It's not contextualising anything, no.
Yeah, you could have structured it in a very linear manner, and it's linear apart from that, and had just the same quality of film. So, that just seems unnecessary. It's solid. I don't have a lot more to say to it though. I like it. It's a fine film. It's nothing special, but I watch it every now and then, although it had been a while. And again, it comes back to like what happened. Like Jennifer Tilly has been in, some TV stuff, but a Child's Play sequel at some point.
Yep.
Gina Gershon I knew a lot before this. Like Face Off's the year after this.
Face Off and Showgirls. Yep.
Red Heat. And
is she in Red Heat?
Yeah, she's the girlfriend of the Russian cocaine dealer.
I've never watched Red Heat all the way through. And
a couple other things sort of kind of back that time. But since then, not an awful lot. And I was like, there's always the other point though to Craig though, it's like, those women would be more than 29 years old after that point, or something. So that might be why they're not in things anymore, because that's what happens.
And look, you've taken your clothes off for this film. I know it's depressing to think about.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Bound actually before this. I've not seen any of these films before talking about them today, and I certainly don't mind Bound. More or less agree with what you're saying over there, Drew. It's a solid enough film, enjoyed it enough. The only thing I know part of the point of having Jennifer Tilly in this role is she's kind of trying to play against type, but I just don't rate Jennifer Tilly. I can't take her seriously in this film or anything, really.
Honestly, I don't think she's helped by her voice.
No.
She sounds like Betty
exactly.
Boop.
And I know, again, that's part of the point. She's making that effort to kind of modulate the voice when she's talking to Gina Gershon's character rather than when he's talking with the men. And I get what they're going for. I just don't think she's really pulled it off. Sorry, I just don't rate her. But that's really the only quibble with the rest of the film. And yeah, the structural things with some of the plots and happenstances that gets through are, they're okay. They're certainly by no means the most egregious in the company of its fellows today. I enjoyed this one well enough, and I'll take what I can get in this episode.
So like we're having the best experience listening to Scott. No. Which is not to just be damning Bound with faint praise. Bound is a solid film. It's not remarkable, it's solid, and it really is a B movie. And that's fine, because a lot of the noir films, this is
it's a genre full of them, isn't it?
Yeah, this noir is a B genre, really. And that's fine. So it fits it really if you're given a resurrection of that genre in the 1990s to have that same kind of aesthetic and level of pitch, really.
Yeah, I think in common with a lot of these films, but perhaps even more so in this case, Bound is an example of a film that at that time felt like a real sort of find and a really satisfying film to know, but now seems or feels, largely, if you were coming to this as a new viewer now, you might feel largely indifferent about it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's anything special about it in a modern context, but I think to know it at the time was something a bit more weighty and something a bit more satisfying. But yes, it's a good film. It was a good film then, and it is a good film now. I'm not going to say sell your children for an opportunity to see it, but I still really enjoyed coming back to it again, in common with a lot of these films. My first viewing in quite a time.